excellent speakers, and they're going to be talking, I think, primarily about what's been going on in Wales last year. It was last year, wasn't it? And I went to the opening of this exhibition, the Kizuna exhibition. So Professor Yoshi Miki was one of the two chief curators of that exhibition. He's very much an international figure in the world of museums. He's a visiting professor at the National Museum of Japanese History, but he actually lives in the States and seems to fly around a lot. And he's worked with museums in the US, Canada, Japan obviously, and the UK as a curator, an educator and consultant. So after that big exhibition in Wales, he's subsequently been working with a number of other regional museums in other parts of the UK to see if they can repeat the magic. So anyway, that's Professor Yoshi Miki. He's the first speaker. And David Anderson is the Director General of the National Museum Wales, which is correctly called Amgueddfa Cymru.
Amgueddfa.
Well, it was close. So he's been there since 2010. Previously was at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, and he's also worked at a number of other museums, including transforming what used to be the St Fagan's Museum to become the National Museum of History for Wales. And he is a board member of Creative and Cultural Skills UK, a member of the advisory committee of British Council Wales, and has written lots of articles on museums and cultural policy and government reports and things like that. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Professor Yoshi Miki.
Thank you, Jason. First, I'd like to thank Jason, Susan, and Alicia, and the Daiwa Anglo-Japanese Foundation for giving us enormous support toward our project for a long time. Your knowledge and then resource helped us to shape our strategy to tackle on this large project. I felt like I have an unlimited resource from the Daiwa. I met so many people through this foundation and other foundations like Japan Society, Japan Foundation London, and Great Britain Sasakawa Foundation, Toshiba International Foundation. They all helped us to go through this project, so I thank for that. Please allow me to start to talk about who we are and what we do. I work for National Museum of Japanese History as a professor by appointment, so which is a project-based appointment. So I'm not full-time. I don't even live in Japan. I live in San Francisco, but it was a great opportunity to work with the National Museum out of the country, to pursue the project. Basically, the National Museum of Japanese History is under National Institute for the Humanities, and that institute's parent organization is the Ministry of Culture and Science. So budget comes from the Ministry, National Institute, and the National Museum. Become very tiny budget for me. The National Institute for the Humanities created the project called the Research on Japan-related Documents and Artifacts. The research on Japan-related documents and artifacts held in overseas. And that's the project I got on about 8 years ago. And we have several teams working, my colleagues of the National Museum of Japanese History working in Austria, Vatican, and Switzerland. And I work in mainly UK. And so that's how things work. And each team has a different goal to pursue. And the mines are more like to assist the curators or museum staff to raise the profile of Japanese collection locally. So that's what I've been doing past 6-7 years now. So the Team UK is basically it's a one-man team. I'm the only one traveling and meeting people and then do my work, do the work. But at the same time, I have about 50 professors, associate professors at the National Museum of Japanese History help me to chip in their knowledge and the information to me, and then so that I can do the research, say that somewhere in the Wales or Scotland, and then document it, and then bring back to National Museum, and then my colleagues help me to put more information, and then I bring them back to the organization where I work with. That's the basic what we do. And I have several partners, the National Museum Wales, and Durham University, and Glasgow Museums, and National Trust in Wales and Scotland, and also National Museum Scotland. These are our partners. So what I do on the basic is to visit the places like castles or houses or local museums to research the Japanese collection. Not for my research. We're doing this for their museum or organization. So we do the research and then bring the new or updated information in English and then bring back to them. And so this we are doing for the organization, not for us. That's the kind of idea. And then, for example, I worked in Cardiff and Wales for about 7 years. I travel throughout Wales to visit castles or country houses or local museum and work with the local curators and the educators and even the floor staff, volunteers, to talk about what they have and also about, say, Japan. These conversations help both of us to learn about the culture or history or relationship between Japan and Wales so that they can use this new information to their audience. Because I only be there a few days a year or a couple times a year, but they are the one standing there and then meet the visitors. So if we can help them, they can do more than us. So that's the kind of way we think. And I drove throughout Wales. It wasn't easy because the most of castles or houses are not in downtown. They are away from downtown. And I only see cows or sheep or some hunters. Then I get there. Suddenly there's a huge building and beautiful artifacts, including Japanese, Chinese. So, I mean, I knew about this, I read about it, but I never had a chance to visit there and then feel it. It just was quite under experience for me, and I loved it. So I just went through hundreds of roundabouts and then just went there and spent time. But meeting the audience, the visitors, was very important to me. I can do the research on the objects, but at the same time, because actually there wasn't my idea. I didn't plan to do this, but most of the Japanese artifacts are on display in a castle or their room. So I had to do my research in the room, not the storage or the research table. So I stand in front of the objects and then measure it. I have a permission to do. So I take a picture or measure it, and sometimes go under and then put the ceramics on the floor and then take a picture of the bag. And people got interested and then start talking to me. What are you doing? And that was the great part. So I got to know what they know about Japan or what they want to know about Japan or objects. So I got all these keywords to start think about strategy, how to develop interpretational, the method, the educational program. So that was great. So I didn't mind people asking me questions. I rather wait till them start talking. But there's an object, so we can talk about in front of the object. And we can focus on the detail and then talk more about it. And then they start talking about what they know about Japan and what they want to know about Japan. So these are the conversations I had many, many times. I really enjoyed doing this. And that, at the same time, I noticed people just love these artifacts. They don't know what they are, but still they love it. And they think they are the treasure of the town. But unfortunately, there aren't so many information. So that's where we came in and then give more information so that we can make more conversation lively. And so these are, wherever I drive, and you get to the castle, there's lots of cars. They are popular. That was another thing. It's popular, and then have lots of things to do. And then always some Japanese artifacts, ceramics, lacquer, furniture, and they're all there. And then people like it. One of the other example, lacquerware. I work on National Museum in Japan, so whenever I do the research of lacquerware, I have a mask, I have a white glove, and a white gown to look at the lacquer. But here in the castle, it's right there, and people just touch it. I never done that before. And so, but they can do it, but they never forget the kind of experience. Touch the lacquerware or dark, black, something. But this hands-on experience never leave their memory. And that's the kind of the moment we can come in to talk more about Japan or relationship between Wales and Japan. So these are the kind of the trips I made many, many times. This is a Poise Castle, and and they have the Penryn Castle is a northern part of Wales, and then the Poise Castle is in the middle of the Wales. And yeah, these are from the Poise Castle. It's not like the display in the museum. It's more lively and then filled of history and human culture or the relationship. And so it's a different way. I mean, it was quite fresh to me, the approach we can deal with. And this is one of the lacquer chest at the Char Castle. And these are all sitting there, and then people walk and sometimes just touch it, and then, but definitely we felt that we need more information so that we can develop more conversation with the audience. So this is what we do. The idea is to raise the profile of Japanese collection locally. There are over 100 Japanese collections open to the public throughout the UK, which is quite amazing. They are everywhere. There are small collection, but also large collection. It's very different. And like I said, they are loved by locals. They consider that their treasure of town. But unfortunately, there aren't enough specialists and also sufficient information. That's where we come in. The information, all objects need to be updated. We assist with the research, then provide new information to improve their display or interpretation. We make conversation, a lot of conversations with staff and volunteers and floor staff and the visitors. That's the good way to know what the actual visitors like to know about Japan or Japanese culture and artifacts. So we have partners based. We have partner organization based in Cardiff, which is National Museum Cardiff, and Durham University Oriental Museum, and Glasgow Museums, and then National Trust and Wales and Scotland. So basically I visit these base a few times a year and spend time there, and then continue to research, talk to staff, locals, and train floor staff. Basically, I have a conversation with floor staff who do the interpretation on the exhibition about the Japanese display or art culture, so that they have more information through me and they can use these information for the visitors. And so, and at the same time, whenever I visit these bases, I visit or meet the local staff of other museums which has Japanese collection, because there are so many small Japanese collections. And I get to know people, and then they get to know me, so that we can start communicating, email, or whenever I come, and we have a small seminar with the curators local, so that we can share the information. So just every time, we just keep expanding the circle of people, and then share the information. So I've been working since 2011. So this is what we do. We, the National Museum of Japanese History, are here to assist you to raise the profile of Japanese collection locally, and then assist them or work with them to develop display or educational programs. Some organizations I focus on to develop educational programs, so that school program can expand it. And for example, Durham University museums work with the schools, so we work with them to develop the school programs. And past 3 years, we tripled the numbers of the visitors. And sometimes the special exhibition. Well, the special exhibition is not our goal. Exhibition is the result of the years of dialogues we had, say, in Wales, and now I'm doing this in Scotland. Because I learned so much about this local Japanese collection, and people love it, so they are very proud of it. So I wanted to gather all these Japanese collections in Wales together at the National Museum in Cardiff, so that people in Wales can be proud of. And we also can thank them to preserve all these beautiful artifacts for over centuries. And also we try to find good stories to come with the objects. And we share these stories so that each object has special meanings. Some are not, I would say, beautiful artifacts, but each object has a story, and sometimes story is more powerful than the object that it look like. And there's so many wonderful stories we found in Wales throughout the research, and then we use these good story to tell, that we share the story with audience. And to keep talking to the audience, we get all this kind of information, what they like to know about Japan. It's not only the history, but what Japanese do now, this modern contemporary life. And we can talk about through the exhibit. So we brought these modern contemporary objects to talk about Japan. And then doing the exhibition is another thing, is good thing about it, is that we can bring the new audience. It's kind of interesting to see whenever we do the exhibition about Japanese art, there is an audience, there is a core Japanese art lovers. They will find us. They will come wherever we do. So I'm not worried about that. We just have the section of beautiful Japanese artifacts. and they will find us to come. But at the same time, exhibition is an opportunity to expand or reach out new audience, and particularly the focus on the family audience. We wanted to have the exhibition, the parents want to bring their children into the exhibit. So that's the other thing we want to include in this special exhibition, Kizuna, so that the family audience always can come. And we worked with schools. Before the exhibition opened, it opened last year in June, we started April to start visiting local schools, many schools, and then talk about Japan and also the exhibition, so that they can bring their parents with them to come see the exhibit. And this project, Japan Society, also Japan Foundation London, they have a great staff on education, so we work together to send them to local schools in around the Cardiff and talked about the exhibition before we opened the exhibit. And then lots of people came back to see the exhibition. I promise this is the last text. The rest I will show the fun images. Like I said, I'm a kind of one-man team to work in UK, or between the National Museum and here. I couldn't do anything by myself. I needed lots of partners. And because I worked at the National Museum and also the Agency for Culture, so I used to send special exhibitions about Japan to other countries. So I had the system to work with. And this time I went back to my old work, the Agency for Cultural Affairs, to be part of this special exhibition. They usually send their own exhibition to abroad, but this time we have our own exhibition about Japanese collection in Wales. And then together from the National Museum in Japan, we can make much bigger exhibition, and also we can show the depths of the Japanese culture. So we spent a couple of years to negotiate with the Agency for Cultural Affairs so that they can budget all the cost. And that was a key, because we couldn't have done that. Couldn't have raised all these quite a large amount of money to bring the national treasures from Tokyo National Museum, Kyushu, and our National Museum Japanese History. So it was quite the effort to make it happen, but luckily we did. And so together we had quite a large exhibition. And these national museums and helped us to make this exhibition happen. And also we talked many organizations like Welsh government, of course, and the Embassy of Japan was very supportive from the beginning. They even hold the pre-opening event at the embassy before the exhibition opening, and was very supportive, and we were very thankful for that. And Daiwa, Great Britain, Sasakawa, Toshiba International Foundation, Japan Society, and all these foundations, well, getting the grant is very important, but at the same time, they are our partners. We work together, we try to be creative. Like, for example, Japan Foundation London, and they put their own budget, London budget, to send the artists and the events, so that we can ask them to do these things. So that make it more the programs, variety of programs. And these, we had many conversations and tried to find the way what we can do together, so that they can do their own things and we can do our own things. Together we can make this project bigger. So I consider this foundation and organization as a true partner, and I couldn't have done without these organizations. And one thing about Japan National Tourism Organization, I found fascinating. They have a big budget, and they have nice, good video and the information we can use. And they usually put on the website or online, but they don't have place to show these videos public. And we took kind of advantage, and then we had a very nice video to showing the modern contemporary Japan with the old and the history. And we had a huge, from there to the huge screen in the middle of the gallery, and then showing that endless, and that made the exhibition much lively. These are the things. I mean, these. I think that was Ms. Takatori, the director of the Japan Foundation, introduced JNTO. And these Daiwa, Susan, Jason, and the Brandon Glicks, the Sasakawa, all these people introduced so many people to me. And then I just went to see them and then started talking about this exhibition. And then that was the fun part of the project, except the budgeting. So I'm going to show you some slides of the Kizuna exhibition. The kind of fact is in the bottom of this slide. The number of the objects displayed, about 180, and 80 are from Welsh Japanese collection, and then over 100 are from Japanese national museums. The challenge is, as most of you know, the Japanese, most of Japanese articles are made of paper, textiles, lacquerware, so we cannot display more than 4 weeks a year when you bring from Japan. The same object you have in here in the UK, you can display, I don't know how many years, but from Japan, we cannot display the object over 4 weeks or 6 weeks sometimes. So to go through the 3 months, 12 weeks exhibition, we have to have 2 rotations. So we have to bring 3 similar objects and then change it every 4 weeks. Every time we have to bring the specialist for the installation from Japan. Not only one, like 3 or 4 the technicians. So that costs a lot. But that's the kind of challenge we have. But at the same time, visitors have opportunity to see the different object in 12 weeks, so which is kind of nice for them. But the pain for us. But that's what we need to do. But so that's why we have over 100 objects from Japan. But basically, we are displaying about 60 at the same time. And we had about close to 60,000 visitors in 72 days, 12 weeks. And just for your information, the population of Cardiff is about 300,000. So 1 out of 5 or 6. Well, I'm sure that people like Jason came to see the exhibition 3 times, so that counts. Thank you. And we brought your friends. But it is quite a number, and then I felt that kind of excitement during the exhibition. Wherever I go, I have a regular hotel I stay. I've been to Cardiff over 20 times past 5 years, and they're so excited. Every time I come back, I went to see Kizuna, and I tell everyone about going to see the exhibit, and just kind of was very exciting because we had lots of conversation with local people, what they like to know about Japan and what they like to do in the exhibition. That's what we did. We're not showing what we learned. We are showing something. We're sharing what we learned with them, and that was the kind of key of the success of this exhibition. Hey, look at this pink. I wouldn't do this, but it was very good because I'm limited my time and then stay. So I had to rely on, or actually I challenged the staff of the National Museum Cardiff to work on this big project. And they all came up some idea, and some was, but still, I mean, I encouraged them to do it. And then it turned out everything great. And it was just very exciting project, the exhibition. And see that the chest you see in front of that is the one in Chalk Castle and in the middle of the Wales. And when I first saw this, this is where this usually is, in a dark corner of long gallery in the Chalk Castle. And then there's quite goldish objects around it, so nobody not pay attention to the object. But this has a great story, and we learned so much about it that we decided to put this in the center of the exhibition. And this is about in the middle of 16th century made, and then came to Europe. And then the owner of the Chalk Castle, Thomas Middleton, was one of the founder of the English East India Company, living in London. And then he was once a mayor of London. So we assume that this came to London, or well, actually this was supposed to go to the Portugal, but somehow it didn't happen, and he sent to his castle sometime. And I went to the National Library to track down the history, and then got to like a 17th century, just 18th century, and so at least 300 years this chest was in the castle, and this is the first time chest get out of the castle and then came to Cardiff and then become star. And so, and then now you go to the Chalk Castle, this chest is standing on the stand. So it's totally different, look different. And also we worked with the staff of the Chalk Castle. They now have the special tour focused on Japanese artifacts. So these are the kind of things we would like to see. And the police castles, on your left is the one in the castle. And then we had this display in the Kizuna exhibition. And after that, National Trust published the article about the chest. So these are the effects we had after the exhibition. Also, this might be, you might know about this, but we found the group of tea ceremony objects in the storage at the National Museum Cardiff, which was sent by Bernard Leach around 1910 or 15. He was studying in Japan, and when the National Museum Cardiff opened to public, and then his uncle was the first director of the National Museum. And he sent a letter to his uncle, and then he wanted to introduce Japanese culture at the National Museum Cardiff. So from the beginning of this National Museum Cardiff, they had a kind of relationship with Japan, and we wanted to remind that and then raise the profile of this collection. So we flew out all these objects, and even the container that is sent from Tokyo into the exhibition. And when we talk about the woodblock prints, we found the history of Welsh ironworks. The very beginning of the history of Japanese train between Yokohama and Tokyo, the train mainly from Scotland was this heavy industry, but rail came from Wales. And the Brannaburn is the one of the ironworks. exported the train rail. So they were used in the very beginning of the history of Japanese train. Now you see these rails used for the fence. This is somewhere in Nagoya. And then you sometimes see that these old rail as a frame of the roof on the platform of the train station. And there you see that this one is 1885, and soon after the American company took over the most of it, but you still see these British-made rail somewhere in Japan. It's kind of related to our history. And we talked about the modern life. And these are the balls I use at my home, but became a part of the collection of the National Museum of Modern Art in Tokyo. So we brought this and talk about our life. We love this design whenever we use. In the videotape that I talked about. And the scroll is about, this is the monster scroll, Hyakkiyagyo Emaki. It's kind of the talk about the origin of the manga. And we had, with the Sony, the local company, helped to bring the touchstone screen, touch panel screen, so that we only can show the say, meter or 50 of the scroll, but we digitalized the entire scroll and then put it in a big screen, and so that people can enlarge it and then see the entire story. It was very popular. The same thing, the wood block print is very popular, but we wanted to show you how this wood print was made. So there are more than 7 or 10 wood block prints to make one print, and so that you can see the whole thing. That's the kind of question I always get from the visitors. And to bring into the young audience, we talked about the manga or comics, and there's a corner people can read and talk about. I bought this Pokemon in Kobe and I brought back and to put it there. It was one of the other star objects. And the latter half of the exhibition is focused on the national treasures from Japanese National Museum. So we kind of focused on the Japanese art lovers to talk about the history and the culture. And Edo's Byobu, the view of Edo, is the first time came to Europe from our National Museum. And the other thing I put quite the effort on this is there are over 30, used to be 50 Japanese corporations in Wales. There aren't so many Japanese employees there, but there are many local Welsh employees. And I wanted them to come to see this exhibit and to know more about the country they work with. And so I visited more than 20 corporations, factories, before the exhibition opened and talked about the exhibit, and then convinced them to come to the exhibit with their family. And I even put this panel in the gallery showing all the Japanese corporations, factories in Wales, so that when they come, they can point out where they work to their family and talk about Japan. So these are the kind of core audience we wanted to focus on, the local, something related to Japan, or young people who never met Japanese objects or Japanese culture, so that this special exhibition can be the start to reach out to the broad audience. And I think that the part we worked very hard on. And also the government, the Welsh government, in the very last minute, they put quite a budget to advertise this exhibition. We had a very short period to have to make this advertisement, but it was great to see this Kizuna title everywhere in Cardiff, and not only Cardiff. There's the poster in Tube, and then other places. And that helped us to make the exhibition more exciting. And the Prince Charles. He was great. He came like a week after opening, and he spent 35 minutes. David graciously bring me back to Cardiff from San Francisco because I went home after the opening, and then had a 35 minutes to take him to the gallery. He looked at every single object. He gave us what he thought about our question on each object. So that 35 minutes was very went fast, but was great. And then Clarence's house put all his visit and social network. That helped us to send out the information to quite a broad audience. So that was helped us. David, I'm gonna pass on to you, and then he said he's gonna surprise me. So, but anyway, thank you very much.
First of all, I want to express our great thanks to the Daiwa Foundation for having been such wonderful supporters for the Kizuna exhibition. And really, we could not have done this exhibition without support of organisations like Daiwa. And I also want to pay great tribute to Miki-san, Professor Yoshi Miki, because he has been utterly indefatigable in his energy for building up the relationship between Wales and Japan, and I've no doubt equally energetic with Scotland and some other parts of the UK as well. And I think it's worth saying that so often committed personalities achieve things that otherwise could never have been achieved, and I feel in the case of Kizuna that really has been the case. This was one of the great exhibitions at Amgueddfa Cymru, National Museum Wales, for a decade that I've been there, and very possibly for longer. Really significant. I did say that I would surprise Yoshi, not perhaps by this image, but I just wanted to point out really that we in the United Kingdom have absorbed elements of Japanese culture almost into our own culture for decades, and I think, as the exhibition showed, even for centuries. So we didn't import a drumming team from Japan to welcome guests to the opening. There was already in Cardiff a group who we could draw upon. They'd been doing it long before Kizuna was ever thought of. And as Yoshi showed here, Prince Charles came round here. I wanted to show this image also because my colleague Andrew Renton on the right, as you look at the image there, the keeper of art at the museum, was perhaps the lead from our side and worked very closely with Professor Miki during the whole project. I also really want to pay tribute to the ambassador, Koji Tsuruoko. He was a fantastic supporter of the project, and I think that he has earned a very important place in the heart of many people in Wales because of his personal commitment to building up the relationship between Wales and Japan. And this is perhaps where I may be a little bit political, and this is, Yoshi has not had warning of this. When one has a beautiful picture, one often also has a frame. Kizuna, I would argue, was the picture. The frame is Brexit. Really important. And I say that because the ambassador himself put it into that framework in his analysis of what was happening just now. He said on more than one occasion that the Japanese government, and I think he really was thinking of his own analysis in good part here, realised that it is no longer possible to reach the United Kingdom by working with London. Now that's been true for decades and decades. In fact, arguably it's always been true. But with Brexit, it came into stark, illuminated focus. And he said that the Japanese embassy now realised that it needed to work with Cardiff, with Edinburgh, with Belfast. It needed to work with Wales, Scotland and Ireland. England is a region of the United Kingdom. Wales is a nation. And that's really significant. For the first time, the Welsh nation worked as a nation on its own with Japan through culture. By this act, with the support of Ambassador Tsuruoka, the dialogue was Wales to Japan direct, not Wales through London to Japan. This is a profound change. This is the future of these islands. And I want to give great credit to the ambassador for having had the understanding and the vision of what Brexit really means, to then also say, we have to make a different relationship now. Now this message was understood very, very clearly in Wales, and has, I think, created a much greater significance for Japan in Wales. It already was big, and as Yoshi has shown, it was significant as an employer of many, many people in Wales, as a source of design inspiration for years. But now the respect that that exhibition represented has had a huge impact, because the smaller nations of the United Kingdom are very often not respected. They're not respected within the United Kingdom. They're not seen as being culturally distinctive. This exhibition showed respect. And it's wonderful that Japan and the ambassador were arguably almost the first nation culturally to do something that was about the relationship between the two nations. That this was a dialogue. This was not a single voice. This was a dialogue between nations. And that was powerfully significant as well. There is no going back for the UK. There may not be a UK in a few years' time. The very first Japanese objects came to these islands when there wasn't really a UK at all. What one had was England and colonies or semi-colonies. And now arguably Japan marked the point at which publicly, internationally, the transformation out of the UK, if you like, as it had previously been known, was marked. Over 400 years. Not a surprise, the First Minister then of Wales was also at the opening of the exhibition, an indication of how much the Welsh Government regarded the exhibition as being significant. Professor Miki, of course, spoke at the opening as well, and again, I pay tribute to him for everything he's done. I think Japanese museums have never had a greater ambassador. And he also mentioned the multiplicity of media which we used. This was also a very beautiful exhibition, one which visually was very striking. And it was one that took the story right up to date with Hitachi trains, which at that stage, I think that was 2018 was the year in which the trains from Hitachi actually started going backwards and forwards between London and Cardiff. And as Professor Miki has said, some treasures which had never been seen in the UK before, anyway, came from Japan. And again, that was part of the sense of respect which people in Wales understood. And Professor Miki mentioned the monster screen as well. But it's very hard to describe the moving elements of an exhibition. I should have had a film rather than anything else. What you're actually seeing was a waterfall tumbling down onto the floor of the gallery, and reconstruction, if you like, of a Japanese garden as well. And still photographs and PowerPoint images just really very poor at reflecting the feeling of being inside an exhibition like this. And the fish swam beneath your feet. Really important was the education program, the public engagement work, and as Professor Miki said, the many organizations, Japanese organizations, were involved in this, as well as our own learning team and others. And I as a child, first learned to love art through Japanese prints. I was living in a small town in the Midlands of England at the time, and I found a book in a bookshop which was about Japanese prints, and I was in my early teens, and I bought it and brought it back home, and I started to copy the prints. I traced and drew and learned to love the flow of line from those prints. And we very much wanted children to have every possible experience of Japan through the exhibition. And we had to organise, therefore, a really strong programme for it as well. And I'm hoping that the seed of love of Japanese culture and Japanese visual language, if you like, will have been brought to many children who otherwise might not have experienced it, at least not as children anyway, and catch them at a formative time. Because these are the kind of things that rise above politics, that help citizens, us, to understand cultures other than through the daily news, or other than through tensions that may appear between countries year by year or decade by decade, or even through wars, perhaps, if you look across centuries. This is vital work, really, and it's vital it's done well. Japan is, of the countries that Wales and the United Kingdom works with, is one of those countries that's a democracy, a living, breathing democracy. And so often in international relationships, countries are working with other countries that are not necessarily democracies, that may not have strong human values in their international work, and even arguably the United Kingdom, with its history in the last 2 or 3 decades in Iraq and elsewhere, has not been a model of a democracy, has not been a model of international relationships, has maybe even been a country that, if one was sitting outside, you'd say, why are we working with a country that does things like that? Well, when Wales works with Japan, it's working with a country that's a democracy, and where culture is valued, and where education is valued. And for me, those are wonderful countries to work with. So this is a team from National Museum Wales and a team from Japan. And one of the other elements of this which is so important is that the staff of organisations get an opportunity to know each other really well through a major project across several years, and to develop friendships through that as well. Because without that, the international relationships are perhaps sometimes growing in thin and stony ground, and it's the relationships between the people that make those so rich. Just a few of the comments from visitors. Some of the legacies, we hope, from the project. There are more that's not on this list. And certainly from Amgueddfa Cymru, we really hope strategically that the relationship with Japan continues for a long time to come, because I believe it's vitally important, and certainly for us in Wales, it's like breathing fresh air. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much.